Okay, well, I've been talking about hunting knives that cross over into the bushcraft community, if you will. And as I've stated before, and I'll just sort of reiterate, usually these knives are heavy hunters. They're not your light bird and trout knives, caping knives, things like that. Now, those knives can be pressed into service and do these smaller tasks, but those aren't the hunting knives I'm talking about. So like I said, I'm talking about some of these heavier knives. And today I have a Puma Stag Bowie. This is right out of Solingen, Germany. 440C. It's about 4 mil thick, 6.5 inches long. The spine is squared, so you can process some tinder with that, and you can also strike your ferrocerium rod. So, in general, the nice thing about these knives is because they're made for hunting, they almost always index very well. They have some sort of a guard, and they're easy to field sharpen. And those are excellent qualities to look for in a bushcraft knife. So we're just going to do some of the tasks that one would do for bushcraft, and usually that's more of notch making. Now this knife here has a nice hollow grind, and I know a lot of people are not fans of the hollow grind knife when it comes to bushcraft, but I can tell you that this knife here is plenty durable for what you're going to use a knife of this size for. And as I've stated repeatedly, if you're not breaking your Mora knives and knives like that, you will not break one of these knives here. The hollow grind is not quite as aggressive as your Buck 119s. Right? It's a little bit lower on the blade, and it's a little bit thicker. This edge probably came, I want to say 30-some degrees, this secondary bevel here. And that's not inclusive. Okay, so I took that down myself, and I want to say I'm somewhere around 20 degrees, and I found it functioned much better. These knives here are individually Rockwell tested. There is a little tiny dimple there, divot, where it was tested, and they're supposed to fall somewhere between 57 and 60 RC. This is considered like a California clip, the style of Bowie that this blade is. This is not a vintage where they use the Puma steel, and I don't know what that steel was. I have never used one of those older knives, but I hear they're fantastic, and they usually go for a pretty good buck. This company is quite old, and I want to say it's from the late 1700s. So this company's definitely been around for a while. And as I said, this hollow grind is a little bit different than your buck knife hollow grind. And I know a lot of people shy away from it, and I think it's sometimes I want to say I think it's a lot of regurgitated material. That people hear someone else say, "Oh, hollow grinds aren't good," and then everyone else follows suit. And that's not the case, because hollow grinds do have their place, and I think if you do use them well, there's no problem at all. I like them for the fact that they sharpen up very rapidly in the field. All right, and the one thing I don't like about your thick Scandi ground knives is that it requires a lot of metal removal to sharpen your knife, and out in the field sometimes that's just not feasible. Furthermore, it will take if you are using something that's diamond impregnated, it will wear that down far quicker, where something like a hollow grind, or, well, really just about any other grind, because you're not removing such a wide bevel's worth of steel, something like that would last longer. So as I always say, I usually would like to use some sort of a baton to make certain stop cuts, but and again, like I'm stating, these are things that are indicative of what bushcraft would be, okay? Making simple notches, okay? If you were making tent pegs, peeling sticks, and things like that. As I said, this is not one of the vintage knives. I have seen a vintage Puma knife, and the fit and finish is far superior to what you can buy nowadays new. And I'm not saying that the fit and finish is bad on these knives, but it is nowhere near what it was in the past. I think the Pumaster steel had some added chromium and things like that in there. So in many instances, you're talking adding things like that for hardness, but also because of it being more of an alloyed steel, it will make your knife far more finicky to use as for flint and steel fire, and it may not even work at all. I have not tried this knife for flint and steel. So as we're saying, many instances, these hunting knives that can cross over, you're going to get the best of both worlds. Because you're going to get a knife that is going to process game, do all your food prep, and things like that, and at the same time, you're going to get a knife that can do some work with some wood. All right. So I mean, this here would just be a simple tent peg. Now, for me, this guard really doesn't get in the way. There obviously is no choil. Smaller ricasso. Very generous lanyard hole, though, which I do like. This is obviously the Stag. Plenty stout enough, though. I mean, that's the knife is no joke, really. So stay tuned, and we'll show you a little bit more around this knife. Take care.